Hey guys, did you hear the music from that little intro thing? Because I didn't. I can normally hear that music. I'm just wondering if there's something wrong with my volume. More to the point, more importantly, can you hear me right now? You could hear the music. Oh, I couldn't. That's weird. That's bizarre. All right. Okay then. All right. The music was on. Weird. Weird. So I was having to like watch for when my face went on rather than just listening to the music. Okay, that's fine. All right, so this is going to be just a quick live. I was going to do this as a recorded video, but I decided to do it as a live because you might have questions, and there's been so many people following the Nicola Bulley case from overseas. It might be the first case that you've ever heard of from the UK that has been so high profile and has been so unusual. It's been that unusual, you know, it's captured the interest of people far and wide. So what I want to do is explain the inquest process and basically what happens next in the case to determine her manner and cause of death. So I thought I'd do that just as a quick live so that if you've got questions, then you can ask me. But also, hopefully, it puts pay to too many people misrepresenting what is being said in the media and not fully understanding what it means. So that's why we're here. All right, so it's going to be pretty dry, as in it's just information. And it's not everybody's cup of tea, I guess, talking about inquests and legal things and whatever. But it's an important part of the process, understanding what happens in the investigation. And I'm guessing that even like a lot of people in the UK might not know fully what an inquest entails and how long this process takes and what information the public will receive. Right. Welcome, Sophie, to the Secret Agents Club. Thank you for joining the memberships. That's very kind of you. You might never have had a friend, relative who's died and their body has gone to an inquest or their case has gone to an inquest. But it's fairly common practice. It used to be the case, and I don't know whether it still is, that anybody who died in a hospital had to go to an inquest. I remember when my granddad died in 1991, and he had severe bronchitis and heart disease, and he died in hospital, and they knew exactly what he died of, but it still had to go to an inquest. It was just a formality. I don't know whether they do that still these days, but watch the Coroner. It's all about inquests. What channel's that on? I don't watch telly, you see, so I don't know. Brother's inquest took 6 months. That's about right. A family member of mine died in October of 2015, and his inquest was the following April of 2016. It might have been late March, but about 6 months is right. 5-6 months is about right. So okay, so I'm going to explain what an inquest is. It might be the same overseas. The process might be very similar. I don't know, but I can tell you what happens here in the UK. So that's exactly what we're going to do. All right. And the reason why this is relevant today is that Nicola Bulley's inquest was opened today. So the coroner's court sat today and heard the beginnings of Nicola's case. So that's the first step. It's a very important first step, because at that early stage, it can be decided whether or not a criminal investigation needs to be started rather than a coroner's inquest. So I've preempted a little bit of what I was going to say. And there's been some discussion about this in my Facebook group. So I thought, right, rather than trying to explain this a million times to a million different people, let's just do it once and you can ask me questions. All right. So first of all, what is an inquest? What do we mean by an inquest in the UK? So I'm just going to read you this paragraph here. And this is from a really easy to understand document that's a fact sheet for families. And I've put this in the description box, so you can read this in full if you want. It's only like a couple of pages. An inquest is an investigation into a death which appears to be unknown, violent, or due to unnatural causes. So unnatural causes is anything other than natural causes. So that could be an accident, it could be a suicide, it could turn out that on autopsy, it turns out that it is natural causes. And even if it's an unusual situation, if somebody is found dead and then it transpires through the autopsy that they died of natural causes, then that wouldn't under normal circumstances need an inquest, right? So it's basically anything, any other death where they don't know. So Nicola's death was determined as unexplained because when she was found on Sunday, they'd not done an autopsy. They'd not done any of that stuff that is needed to even begin to determine what her cause and manner of death might have been. So a coroner's inquest is not a criminal court. The coroner is not deciding who's to blame for any particular situation. A coroner's inquest specifically is designed to find who, where, when, and how that person died. All right, so that's what an inquest sits for. All right, so in court today, they determined the who, right? And it was determined by the senior coroner. So this is the guy who will oversee Nicola's case through the court system. And as I said, the inquest sat today, like the opening of the inquest sat today. So the senior coroner, so he's the senior coroner for the whole of Lancashire. So they've got the big guy in, right? So you can go and look up his qualifications. You can go and look him up. You can say that he's got, I don't know, paid off by Lancashire Police. He isn't. He isn't. Oh dear. All right. So he drafted in a maxillofacial surgeon, Andrew Edwards. All right. To formally identify Nicola's body. And that was done on Monday. So she was identified by her dental records, which is normal, perfectly normal, in a situation where somebody has been out in the open or in water for 23 days, as Nicola was. Then I don't need to explain the reason, surely, why she's not going to look like she did in life. Let's put it that way. So it's perfectly normal to identify someone via their dental records. They could have used DNA. People whose, bodies basically shot to bits. They'll use DNA. They can use fingerprints. They can do IDs on various kind of ways, but dental records is pretty standard. So he told Preston's Coroner's Court, "I am satisfied on the balance of probabilities and more that positive identification has been made. The hearing, which lasted about 5 minutes, so it was just the opening. It's the opening of the inquest. It's the opening of the case, basically. So family didn't attend. The coroner said remaining evidence gathered by police and the post-mortem required further evaluation, and a full inquest was likely to be held in June, and we do have the date of that. This will allow time to collate the facts of the case and allow the experts involved to finalise the findings from investigations that still need to be undertaken. All right, so if we just go back to what is an inquest. All right, so we know who that person was, identified on Monday by a surgeon who specialises in the jaw and the face. Maxillo is jaw, facial is face. So this is a jaw and face surgeon. All right, and the inquest that will take place in June after the investigation has taken place will say where, when, and how. All right. So at that point, it becomes public record, Nicola's cause and manner of death. So the things that they might want to investigate is things to do with not just that will kind of lead them into understanding the cause and manner of death. They might have to get experts in who may be experts in, let's say, water creature activity and those kind of things. I don't know. I'm just guessing. Those are the types of experts they do tend to draw on. But yeah, okay. So we know also from Lancashire Police a little bit more detail, and this is on their Facebook. So please see a statement from His Majesty's Senior Coroner for Lancashire and Blackburn with Darwen, Dr. James Adderley. So coroners in the UK, they're not employed by the police, they're employed by the Crown, right? They work for the Crown, right? They're not paid for and belong to the police. All right. So there's absolutely no way that Lancashire Police, if they wanted to cover up something, that they could do. All right. Because if a senior coroner such as Dr. James Adderley could be so easily bought off, I don't think he'd be in the position that he's in. But that's just my opinion. So, an inquest into the death of Nicola Bulley has been opened by His Majesty's Senior Coroner for Lancashire and Blackburn with Darwen. Why is Blackburn with Darwen like separate? That is part of Lancashire. Anyway, that's just his title. The coroner also ruled that her body could be released for a family funeral. All right, so all the investigations of the body, all of the, the autopsy, the swabs, the photos, the stuff that will be sent off for toxicology, that's all been done. All right. They're not going to release that body to the family if there's any question marks remaining as to what really happened, shall we say. The coroner's investigation will consider how Miss Bulley came to her death. The investigation will take time to complete to ensure that as complete a picture as possible of the facts concerning Miss Bulley's death is presented at the inquest. This will assist the family in understanding what occurred. As part of this process, His Majesty's Senior Coroner has requested Lancashire Constabulary produce information gathered during the search for Miss Bulley so it can be considered as part of the investigation. And again, that is totally normal that anybody involved in a search for a missing person or who attended that person could be called as a witness or as part of an investigation into that person's death. But to be very, very clear, this is not a criminal court. Coroner's courts are not criminal courts. The coroner is not going to sit to apportion blame. If any blame is to be made, it will be done separate from the coroner's court. But this tells me something very, very important, which I'm going to get to in a moment. Whilst His Majesty's Senior Coroner considers this information, Lancashire Constabulary has been asked by His Majesty's Coroner not to disclose the case in either social media or the mainstream media. Again, that's normal, right? Because it is an investigation. It's not a criminal investigation, but it's an investigation nonetheless. All right, so they can request that. The inquest has been listed to be heard at 10 a.m. on the 26th of June, and that's at County Hall, Fishergate, Preston. It's interesting that they're holding it at County Hall because the Coroner's Court has their own little court, and it's only small. I've been there. I was a witness at an inquest, and yeah, it's only small courts. But I'm guessing that they're anticipating there's going to be a lot of media, and I might even go along. It depends how I feel about it. If I feel I'm being intrusive, or they might say press only. It is a public court, though, so technically they should let the public in. But I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. I'll decide nearer the time. But yeah, so it's scheduled for 10 a.m. 26th of June. So that's about 5 months' time. So that's about right. 5-6 months. Okay, so let's look at the circumstances. When is an inquest necessary? Now, this is the important thing here. All right. So there are other situations from those given above when an inquest might be held, including where the death occurs in prison or other detention, so that's not relevant. If, when the death occurs, the attending doctor cannot immediately certify that the death is obviously natural and or expected, it must be referred to the coroner. So obviously, this had to be referred to the coroner because it was unexplained. How, what's the circumstances of how Nicola ended up in the river? That's one of the things that the coroner will want the investigation to focus on. What were the circumstances leading to Nicola being in that river? All right, so they'll want to know, Dr. James Adley will want to know how long experts believe she was in that river. Was she there the whole time? Was there signs of a crime? And as we'll see in a moment, the answer is no. As we'll see in a moment, the answer is no. Whether she died on land and rolled in the river, whether there's evidence of substance use that could be relevant. Is there signs of, was she rolling drunk? Toxicology will take 4 to 6 weeks to come back, but we're not going to hear anything about this now until the inquest, because the coroner does not want the police, as part of their investigation, to disclose any of it to the media. There's no requirement for the police to do anyway, right? Once it's, the body has been released to the coroner, then there's no reason for the police to comment at all, honestly, unless it became a criminal investigation, which it won't. So sorry guys, Anyway, let's carry on. All right, so blah, blah, blah. At the end of the inquest, the coroner can give the following conclusions about the death. Now, some of these are not like necessarily the whole story, because sometimes the coroner will give a narrative. So we'll just talk through, won't give a specific, like, whatever. So it's likely, actually, that if a post-mortem, let's say, for example, at autopsy, it couldn't be established whether it was natural causes, but it turned out that it was. After an investigation, it turned out that it was. Then the coroner would conclude that it's natural causes. All right. What's in an inquest? I don't know what you mean by that. I'm explaining what's in an inquest. An inquest is it's a court, a coroner's court. So they sit, the coroner sits and listens to witnesses who might be called. They have the reports that have been compiled by, in this instance, the coroner wants Lancashire Police to compile the results of their investigation. There'll be the autopsy report, which will be fed in. They might want additional experts to comment on that autopsy report. I don't know. It depends. The coroner can request anything, but let's be clear. It is not a criminal court. The coroner is simply sitting to determine these three things. And that was the purpose of today's opening of the inquest. The court sat today and it was decided based on a facial surgeon who analysed Nicola's dental records, the who was formally decreed as that of Nicola Bulley. Right, so that's already gone through the coroner's court. In June, when the inquest sits, then it will be the results of the where, the when, and the how. But there's no apportion of blame, none. All right, see, coroners are responsible for making inquiries about where the cause is unknown, and the investigations are done on behalf of the coroner's office. It's different to other courts because there is no formal allegations or accusations and no power to blame anyone directly for the death. At the end of the inquest, the coroner will give his or her conclusion, and this will appear for the final death certificate. The death can then be officially registered. Okay. So lots of cases that go to inquests are accidents, suicides. There you go. The coroner can give a narrative conclusion, so can just explain what the circumstances were and about how the death came about. Some coroners like doing that, some don't. Unlawful or lawful killing. Now that sounds criminal, doesn't it? That sounds criminal. However, that's usually in, let's say, places like prisons, let's say, where someone has been found hanging in their cell. All right. It might be determined that this was a case of unlawful killing at this point, or lawful killing. Now, what do we mean by lawful killing? Well, that's, I don't know, a circumstance like, how can you lawfully kill someone? I don't know how you could lawfully kill someone. Oh, I know, turning a life support machine off. That's lawful killing. Andrew, thank you for the $9.99. Thank you, thank you. Andrea, sorry. I really seriously need to get some new glasses. I cannot read. Phoenix, thank you for the €20. Thank you, thank you. Industrial disease. Road traffic collision. So that's accident, I guess. Or it's not. Because actually, it's a funny one. Because if there's a road traffic collision that has got a criminal element to it, that won't be dealt with by the coroner's court. That's dealt with by criminal court. So it's weird. But anyway. All right. So the important bit is down here. What happens at an inquest? An inquest is held in public and is a formal process. Unlike a criminal court case, there is no prosecution or defense. However, the witnesses may be represented by lawyers. When I was a witness, as to whether this person was suicidal or not. And the other witnesses were police officers who were attending shortly after, like the ones who were involved kind of shortly after, who did the investigation. They came and did like short reports. And there was also someone who worked on the railways, because this person died on the railway. I'm not going to go into details, but rest in pieces. That's all I'm going to say. All right. So what happens at an inquest? An inquest is held in... I've read that. The coroner decides who to call as a witness. As part of the investigation, the coroner will request a statement from family members, doctors, or anyone who may have relevant information, and the coroner may call that person as a witness. So, for example, right, in the case I've just described, you know, if this is a suspected suicide, well, who can give us a statement as to whether or not this person was suicidal, right? You know, it looks like a suicide. It most probably is a suicide, because there's also a note. But I don't know, at the very last moment, that person could have been pushed, I guess. So, you know, they've got to look at these things, don't they? They've got to go through the formalities. All right. If you're called as a witness, the coroner might ask you to read through your statements or take you through statements in court, and you may be asked questions. I didn't have a statement. I just wung it. I wing everything. It was a very, very easy process, though. Very straightforward. Thank you. Thank you. Griminator Patty. Thank you for the $9.99. Self-defense is not a lawful killing. Yeah, it is. It is. If your life was it, if it was them or you, right? If it was them or you, you're allowed to use reasonable force in order to protect yourself. So if somebody came at you with a knife and you turn that knife on them, like you just turned it round, you know, and you turn that knife on them and they died, it's self-defense. You wouldn't be done for murder. And that, I don't know whether you call it lawful killing, but it's justifiable killing. Yay, Phoenix has gifted 10 memberships. Wow, thank you, Phoenix. Let's see who got it. Right. Monica, Laced in Chains. Who else? Jack, Grammy. Oh, it's going too fast. Angel Baby, Julie, Jen, Blambriel. I'm sure you've had a membership before. Maybe you've not. Dodie and E. Robbie. Welcome, welcome. Welcome, welcome. Self-defense would be lawful killing. Like you're allowed to use reasonable force. So if you were having an argument with somebody And it wasn't, well, it's determined, reasonable force is a very strange thing. It's determined by the circumstances. So if somebody came at you with a knife, then it would be considered reasonable force for you to believe that your life was in danger, because it would be. And if you had the skill to turn that knife on them and they died, then that's reasonable force. Unfortunate for them, they shouldn't have come at you with a knife. However, if you're having an argument with somebody over the last loaf of bread in your local store, and you were arguing with them and you took out the knife and knifed them, you couldn't call that self-defense. That's ridiculous. That's unreasonable force. You know, you can't take a knife out on somebody just based on having an argument. Do you see what I mean? So it's determined by the circumstances what is reasonable. So if your life's at threat, then it's reasonable that you're going to protect yourself very strongly. But it would be determined by the court. Be determined by the court. What is self-defense? Defending yourself. Defending yourself against an assailant is self-defense. I'm not going to kill them, but I'm leaving with that bread. Me too. Me too. I might have him in an headlock, but it would be a very gentle headlock. You see, even putting someone in a headlock, right, wouldn't be considered reasonable force to settle an argument about a loaf of bread. Anyway, let's go on with this. All right. So where were we? All right. So the coroner will usually ask questions of witnesses giving evidence in person. Questions can also be asked by the family or by other interested persons. Yeah, they do. It's weird. The coroner was like, does anybody want to ask a question? Do you have any questions? It's like, no. Okay, questions, blah, blah, blah. Interested persons have the right to legal representation, including families. Basically because you might be requested as a witness and you might be too scared to speak. So you get a representative. That can be a lawyer. It probably could be somebody else, I'm guessing. All right, so you have to fund your own legal representation if you want it. The coroner is not allowed to apportion blame. The coroner's court is one of investigation and inquiry to find out what happened. Way! Bethany Sage has gifted 5 memberships. Thank you. Okay, let's have a look. So Sheepy, Lotus Flower, Barbara, Max Break, and Trina. Welcome, welcome. Thank you, Bethany. Thank you to Phoenix. Thank you to Bethany. Got 15 new members as a result of people. So for those of you who don't understand the membership thing, when somebody gifts you memberships, you get a membership that's paid for 1 month, after which time it just disappears unless you choose to pay the next month. But you're under no obligation. It's just a nice thing that people do. There are some members' lives that you can watch. There's some short videos you can watch. There's some status updates you can have a look at. There's a couple of blooper videos that are pretty funny. So, yeah, you can have a look at those. All right. Inquest process, step by step. This is what I was getting to. All right. So, reportable death occurs. Referred to coroner. That's already happened. We knew that was going to happen because her death was unexplained. Anybody being found in a river, it's unexplained, right? Even if somebody's had a heart attack by the side of a river and falls in and dies, that will be referred to a coroner. Now, it will be, most probably, if they've had a heart attack and it's very clear that the heart attack preceded them falling in the river, right? I think they may be able to tell that. Then that will be deemed natural causes and probably won't go to a full-blown inquest. But if they're unsure, if there's a heart attack involved and there's signs of drowning, then that will go to an inquest, all right? But if it's determined at autopsy that there is clear signs of a crime, the coroner ain't going to be doing an inquest, because an inquest is not a criminal court. That would be referred to back. It'd be referred back to the police for a criminal investigation. Yes, the autopsy is done because Nicola's body's been released back to her family, so they're not going to do the autopsy after they've released the body to the family, because the body's now in the, you know, it's up to the family what they do with that body. What about homicide? I'm getting there. Now, if at the autopsy there was clear signs of homicide, for example, a gunshot wound, right? Because a body that's been in water for 23 days, right, is not going to be a skeleton, right? It's going to be decomposed, but it's not going to be skeleton. So things like a gunshot wound, you'd be able to see. Effects of strangulation, you'd be able to see. You'd be able to see the hyoid bone broken, that most often occurs during strangulation. You'd be able to tell if they'd had their head caved in, like stab wounds, those kind of things, right? That would not be going to an inquest. Why would that not be going to an inquest? Because the inquest, the coroner's court, is not a criminal court. That would be referred back to the police for a full criminal investigation. Get it? All right. So, coroner considers information and decides as to whether an inquest is required. So, looks at the autopsy, looks at the information that is presented by the pathologist, and says, okay, so this person had a heart attack by the side of the river and fell in. But they were already dead when they fell in. Therefore, this is natural causes. We don't need an inquest. Okay. What is a post-mortem? It's an autopsy. So post-mortem means after death. So in the UK, a lot of people don't use the word autopsy. They just use the word post-mortem. I don't. I use autopsy because post-mortem, it's Latin and it means after death. So I suppose you could say post-mortem examination, so after death examination. But I just use autopsy because everybody understands what that means. Okay. So the coroner can either request more information and opens a preliminary investigation, which is what they've done in this case, or decide there and then that an inquest is required. That's also what they've done. The inquest is opened and adjourned for further investigation. So that's the term that has been used in the media today. That is the term that's being used because that is the formal term of when you open an inquest and then you adjourn it because, right, this is an unexplained death. I want to know what the police investigation was. I want to know the details. Therefore, I'm going to adjourn it for now, and I'm going to bring you back in June when that is completed. Starsky Rottweilers. Member for 6 months. Oh, thank you. They have the authority to look at a person's medical records. They do. They do. All right. If an investigation or inquest is opened, usually a post-mortem examination, also called an autopsy, is performed to establish the probable cause of death. So that's already been done. We know that's been done because they've released her body back to her family. So they're not going to release the body back to their family until the autopsy is completed. You know, swabs and all of that stuff that is done, photographs, tissue samples, DNA, all of that stuff is collected, toxicology, blood samples, etc., etc. All of that's done. So it's the same in the UK as it is in America. You know, that's what an autopsy is all about, right? You get a report. So the coroner will already know the probable cause of death. The coroner will already know that. And the coroner is the pathologist will have given their opinion of the cause and manner of death. They'll have given their opinion in their report. But the coroner obviously has to do a full investigation, and it's their responsibility to decide what the cause and manner are. So where they died, when they died, how they died. Okay. What does DNA stand for? Deoxyribonucleic acid. Are you really stupid, Kelvin, or are you genuinely asking questions? Are you just being awkward? Because you could just look these things up, couldn't you? I guess most people don't know what DNA stands for. I don't know. When will we get to know the autopsy results? At the inquest. You'll get the cause and the manner. That will be part of public record, but they don't have to. They don't have to release the full autopsy report. But cause and manner. He's trolling. I know he is. Shall we, Kelvin? Do you want to be put in a timeout? I'm going to put you in a timeout. From now on, the timeout is called the naughty step. Why can I not put him on timeout? What's that about? Has he already gone? He's already gone. Oh no. No, he's not. It's just that it's my screen. Hold on. Let me just make sure that I put the right person in a timeout, because I can't see a thing. Specsavers need to contact me. Oh, Trixie stars deleted. Trixie stars too quick. Put user in timeout. There we are. You're in a timeout. Kelvin! Kelvin! Kelvin, listen. You got any more questions? Google is your friend. All right. Okay. All right. If the post-mortem shows an inquest is not necessary after all, the family are informed and the process concludes. So we've already had the formal opening of the inquest today. So obviously the coroner, after looking at the autopsy report, decided that he wanted the full investigation being done. All right. But he'll probably know he will know the pathologist's opinion on the cause and manner. How do I know that? Because it's going for an inquest and not a criminal investigation. Right. If an inquest is necessary, the coroner reviews and decides if a referral to police CPS is needed for criminal prosecution. Right. So they would have said today, right, at the opening of the inquest, they will have said, I can't deal with this. I can't deal with this because this is a criminal matter. And it will be referred back to the police and the CPS, the Crown Prosecution Service, for possible criminal prosecution. So the autopsy report, the provisional manner of death, was not homicide. Let that sink in. All right. If no criminal issues, fixes timetable and calls for evidence. So the timetable has been fixed. We know the date of the inquest. 10 a.m., 26th of June. That's the date that's been scheduled into the court calendar to formalise the results. If needed, arranges a pre-inquest review. All interested persons, including family, are invited to discuss relevant issues, review evidence, identify witnesses required, and fix a timetable. Well, he's already fixed the timetable because he's already put it in the court calendar, but they may well do a pre-inquest review. They might do. They might do. When investigations are complete, the inquest date is fixed. Witnesses notified to attend and give evidence and answer questions. All right, so there is potential for that date to be moved. However, it's likely it won't be. It depends. It depends. Inquest hearing in public. Coroner gives conclusion. The coroner completes the necessary paperwork and the death can then be registered. And at that point, the cause and manner becomes public knowledge because it's a public court. All right. So the media can go in, the public technically could go in. If issues are more complex, some steps may be repeated, like pre-inquest hearings or take longer. If the coroner's decisions are controversial, the family is likely to be consulted. If in doubt, speak with the coroner's office. All right, so the rest of it. So I've left a link to this in the description box. I thought it was an easy document to understand for people who don't know anything at all about UK courts or anything at all about inquests. Even if you live in the UK, if you've never had a family member or a friend who's died and their body's gone to an inquest, then you might not even know. So what can we conclude from all of this? What can we conclude from all of this? Well, we can conclude that they do not think after examination of the body that this is a homicide, or else the inquest hearing today would have ruled that this cannot be dealt with by the coroner. This is being referred back to the police and the CPS for a criminal investigation. So there's that. I don't know how you feel about that, but that's what it is. That's what it is. That's what it is. So you're not going to see a murder investigation. This was not a murder. All right, guys. So those of you screaming foul play are now going to scrabble. You're going to be scratching at the walls to try and find some information that you can use that a cover-up has taken place. Anyway, who's got questions? Because I've not been reading every single comment. I can't when I'm reading. It won't stop the BS. I know it won't, Janet, but, you know, you've got to try. You've got to try. It's what we in the trade call a whitewash. Okay. So, really, to be honest, the water is knee deep. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. At the side of the bank, the 10-foot sheer drop, remember, it's a 10-foot sheer drop down from the edge of the bank to the riverbed, at least 10 foot. So it's shallow at that banking, but it goes to 3.5 meters in the middle at that point. Who told me that? Some people's fan favorite, Peter Faulding said that. His measurements. And he also said that that was the day they were there. but he believed it was deeper on the day that Nicola went missing. Was there a note? We don't know if there was a note. That kind of thing will be discussed at the inquest. Why wasn't Nicola seen by walkers after she fell in the river? Because when you drown, you sink. You float for a little while and then you sink. You probably, because she was wearing 2 coats, one of them was like a padded gilet, and then she's got another coat on underneath, and jeans and boots. She was wearing rain boots. Those are heavy. Once they're waterlogged, they are heavy, and they will basically, you'd sink faster. So in that few hours, I've talked about this in previous videos, in that few hours where, you know, Willow and the phone were found at 9:33, but the alarm wasn't raised till about 10:50. So you've got an hour and a half easily before the police even get there because of that delay. And you then have the police and the searchers start, it's normal practice to start at ground zero. So where is that person last believed to be, which is at the bench? So they start there and then they fan out. Now in that time, in those hours, the body is likely to have drifted around that bend. It's only a few hundred yards to the weir, so it goes round a bend and then to the weir. And then once it gets into the past the weir, then it's tidal waters. So I believe that's why the body wasn't in the immediate vicinity when the searchers got there. Yeah, she was, and she was wearing black. And what does a river look like when you're looking into it? Unless it's really, really shallow, it looks black. What link are you looking for? I don't know what link you're looking for. There's a few links in the description. The link to the inquest thing, it's in the description box. That's what I can say, but I'll put it in the chat for you. You've heard she's gone to a forensic pathologist. Who's told you that? She could well have done, yeah. I would imagine that people like entomologists will be contacted for their opinion. Allegedly, according to the media. Yeah, I'm wondering that too. We'll find that out at the inquest, maybe. People don't want it to be accidental because that's too easy, you know. And I think there's something psychological that goes on in people's minds that, you know, if they can admit that it's a freak accident that could have happened to anybody, then they have to admit it could happen to them, and that's scary. So it's a defense mechanism. Yes, they have released the body back to the family. Yes, they have. What? A psychic found her body, face turquoise covering eyes, or his dog did. I don't know what that means. No, right. Right. What happens when you die? I'll leave that one with you. The time in the river was the answer. Why they couldn't tell. Yeah, well, they have to identify with other means if they can't facially identify you. Yeah, I do try. I do try. They do. They want more because it's not, an accident isn't salacious enough. And I really do think it's a defense mechanism in a lot of people. Do I think it's fair that the police are under pressure to explain the shortcomings of their investigation? I think they're stuck between a rock and a hard place, because if they don't, then people will be saying that they're, I don't know, they're covering something up. So the police investigation is this. So there's two investigations. The College of Policing, the national policing standards body, is to launch a wide-ranging independent review of Lancashire Constabulary's investigation. The Lancashire Police and Crime Commissioner Andrew Snowden said he ordered the review because there remains questions about how the force had handled the high-profile search. It came as the police watchdog launched an investigation into the constabulary's contact with Bulley, 45, before she went missing. So the IOPC said it had launched an inquiry into the force's contact with Bulley 17 days before she was last seen alive. So it was that welfare thing. Now, that is pretty standard, right? If somebody goes missing then's found dead and they've had contact with the police on like a few days or a couple of weeks before, then it makes absolute sense to you know, to look at it, review what was that, what was the actual problem, you know, could they have done more? And then I don't think they should be criticising the police for the amount of work they've put in. I don't think they did anything wrong in the search that they did. I think that all the, you know, the amount of organisations and services that were on scene very, very quickly, I don't think they could have done more in terms of the actual search itself. What I think should be investigated is why they thought it was acceptable to release personal information about her being menopausal and about her having an alcohol issue. I don't agree that they should have released that. Absolutely no way should they have released that. That needs to have some kind of, like, whose decision was that? Who made that decision to do that? And apparently it was with the family's knowledge that they did it, but even if if the family had said no, don't release it, would they still have done? I don't know. Those kind of things need looking at, honestly. No, it wasn't the wrong search order. It wasn't. They started at the point of last known place to be, i.e. where the phone was and where Willow was. That's the obvious place that she was last, right? Penguin, welcome to memberships. Welcome to the Secret Agents Club. And then they found out, both in the water and on land. They had people walking those banks. There was groups of volunteers walking those banks. Now, the reason why in the kind of last week they focused on the estuary is because a body that it's based on previous knowledge that bodies that end up in the River Wyre tend to get down to the estuary or almost at the estuary. So that's why they were focusing on Shard Bridge, because of the sandbanks there, like bodies have washed up there previously. So it made absolute sense that whilst they had volunteers and people walking the banks, that they focused their efforts on the the places that were too dangerous for them to ask the public to look at. So I don't think they did anything wrong in the search. Now, obviously, I wasn't there. Maybe there is learning points. Maybe they would have done some things differently. But isn't that the case with everything, every investigation? There's always learning points. There's always things that you could have done differently. But that's in the benefit of hindsight. You've got to remember that this is a tidal river. And you've got to remember that, this is a woman wearing heavy winter clothing. And this is a river that is silt and sand at the bottom and has got some really dangerous parts in it at high banks. So I don't know what more. I really don't know what more they could have done. But what they shouldn't have done is release personal information about her. I just don't agree with that at all. Sent you a PayPal to make sure you received it. Let me just check my emails. It's a no-go area in my emails at the moment. I've got so many of them. Hold on. Let's have a look. All inboxes. I'm not seeing it. But that doesn't mean to say that it's not there. Hold on. I might even be in the wrong inbox. How can that be? Not at the moment, but it could be. It could be there and I just can't see it because there's just so many emails, honestly. I am going to have to go through them at some point. Oh, hold on. Not by the looks of things at the moment, but it sometimes they take a minute to come through, don't they? I don't know. I mean, if you were gonna search along the river there, that would be an obvious place to look, like a fallen tree. And the fact that it was near the road, if I'd been walking that river that day, then walking near the road and looking under a fallen tree would just seem obvious to me. And I don't think you'd need psychic abilities for that. I don't know. Who reported her missing? There's loads of information out there about that. Her partner Paul rang 999 after the school informed him that Willow and Nicola's phone had been found. Do we know her work call? It was muted and there was no camera on. Yeah, she was wearing really, dark clothing. It's only a shallow weir. I don't know how anybody thinks that the weir would have stopped. The power of the water. takes things over weirs. It's a shallow weir. It's not like a big, massive. Somebody described it as a brick wall. It's not. It's a shallow weir as weir goes. Yes, Peter did. Peter did. Yeah, don't let me get me started on Peter. Yeah, searching in a place where the body couldn't possibly have been because he doesn't know how rivers work. Doesn't seem to anyway, in my opinion. All right, questions. I'm going to sign off in a minute because it got up. Is he still doing the rounds on in the media or not? Has he stopped now? I wonder how his book sales going. What do I suppose happened? I think she fell in the river. Yeah, but if there'd been a crime, there would be some kind of sign on the body. Something. There'd be something, you would think. Yeah, that's one of my suggestions that I made pretty early on. Well, as soon as I'd been to the scene, so that was the 6th of February. As soon as I looked down and saw how steep it was, I thought she could easily have knocked herself out if she'd fallen backwards and hit her head on the rocks at the bottom. She's knocked herself out, and that's what I'd like to believe, because it means she didn't know anything and she didn't struggle and, you know, she didn't fight. That's what I'd like to believe, honestly. I mean, look, we've all fallen. I fell today in my bedroom. I didn't fall over anything, right? I was literally putting a shoe on, right? And I wasn't dizzy. I don't know. I just stumbled putting my shoe on and fell. So look, we can do it. Everybody fought, you know, everybody has minor accidents. We have accidents every day. But just occasionally, very occasionally, an accident becomes a tragic, horrible disaster and can be fatal. Yeah, mainstream media, I've said this. For me, mainstream media was worse than social media in a lot of respects, because they were pushing foul play. They were really, you know, making a big deal about this unexplained mystery. And then they had the likes of Peter Folding, who was given a platform, you know, and I don't know what else to say. And then you've got social media. Like, increasingly, we're seeing social media and mainstream media feeding off each other. Like, it used to be that social media was fed by mainstream media, at least in part. But now we're seeing the mainstream media using social media as a source. I think that's what Ashley Banfield's doing in the Idaho 4 murders. I really do. I think Ashley Banfield is bringing up all these unnamed sources. I think it's people on social media that she's listening to. So the feeding in is two-way now. So we have the public's been whipped up into a frenzy, and then there's the likes of me who've tried to just say, look, this could be very, very, very simple. But I was in the minority. In the big, you know, the big minority as well. I know, she did. She did. Yeah, I mean, a dog's going to sniff it out, a dead body. Absolutely. That's why I had Cassie running all over. that upper field. I had Cassie running all over it. Because she would have, if there was anything to find, she would have found it. I had her down the bank of the weir. That's the main reason I actually went to the weir, like through, like right to the edge of the weir. And Cassie was just doing general sniffing. Like, she wasn't alerting on anything. I know what Cassie does when she finds something or she smells something that she can't get to. So yeah. So she wasn't in the vicinity of the weir while I was there. I think she's probably been under the surface, under that fallen tree for probably a long time. That's just my opinion. It's his dog that was psychic. His dog was psychic. Right, I'm going to go to the bottom now because I'm way up the top. Wonder if Peter will retire. Oh no, I don't think he'll retire. I don't think he'll retire. He might have learnt a lesson though, right? He might have learnt a lesson. The police speculated all the way. No, they didn't. The police said, we believe she's in the river, although we are keeping an open mind. The police didn't. The police were the people who least speculated. Yeah. I'm talking about it because we had an inquest hearing today. That's why I'm talking about it. Weren't you here at the beginning when I explained this? You probably need to rewind. There was an inquest hearing today. So in order to put the information out, rather than making just a short recorded video, I decided to do a live so people could ask questions. So I'll go back to the beginning. And it just preempts all the nonsense coming out. I can just refer people to this video. But no, I don't want people making videos speculating that it was a murder or continuing to badger people or continuing to blame the family. I don't want that. No. But if there's factual information that's relevant to the case moving forward, then of course I'm going to report on it. And today was, I'll show you, today was the opening of the inquest. What's it done here? Why has it done that? Why does YouTube do any? Right, that's weird. All right, can I? What? Right, get rid of that. Okay. All right. An inquest into the death of Nicola Bulley has been opened by His Majesty's Senior Coroner. The coroner also ruled that her body could be released for a family funeral. The coroner's investigation will consider how Miss Bulley came to her death. The investigation will take time to complete to ensure there's a complete picture as possible for the facts concerning Miss Bulley's death is presented at the inquest. This will assist the family in understanding what occurred. As part of this process, His Majesty's Senior Coroner has requested Lancashire Constabularies produce information gathered during the search for Miss Bulley so it can be considered as part of the investigation. Whilst His Majesty's Senior Coroner considers this information, Lancashire Constabulary have been asked by the coroner not to discuss the case on either social media or the mainstream media. So we wait for the inquest. We're not going to get any more information from the police. And we're not going to get any more information about the investigation until the inquest, which is 10 a.m, 26th of June, 2023, County Hall, Fishergate, Preston. Emma Daisy, welcome to memberships. Welcome to the Secret Agents Club. Welcome, welcome. So that is the reason for this live, and to see if anybody's got any questions. You know, people don't know what an inquest is. If you overseas and you've never even considered a UK case before, you've never seen a UK case this high profile, and you want to know the next step, well, this is the next step. The inquest has been opened and there's now an investigation. We know it's not a criminal investigation because an inquest, a coroner's court, is not a criminal investigation. So the results of the autopsy did not indicate that she was murdered. So we don't need any more videos talking about this person did it or that person did it, because no, they didn't. No, they didn't. All right. Hey, Emma gifted 10 memberships. Thank you. Thank you. You just joined yourself and then you gifted 10. Oh, thank you. Okay, who've we got? Diana, Momo, Alan, Karma Police, Melinda, Shelley. Oh, it's jumped. Jackie, is this where it is? LJ Gaming Channel God. Wow. Mega Truth. Welcome, welcome. That's 25 new members. And plus, that's just who's been gifted. Plus some who bought their own. Welcome, welcome, everybody. If you've got any more questions, I'm going to go now. It's like 20 past 11 my time. It's the same date as Brian Koberger's preliminary hearing. Not the trial. It's a preliminary hearing, that's all. We will hear some evidence at the preliminary hearing. You wish you would retire. Yeah. Yeah. All right, guys, I'm going to go. All right. So hopefully this has been informative. You understand the process. If you're in the UK, as I said, if you've never had a family member or a friend who's died and has gone through an inquest, you might not know the process. You might not know what they're for. But the take home is that a coroner's court is not a criminal court. They're not there to apportion blame. Today, when the inquest was opened, would have been the time when the coroner would have referred it back to the police and the Crown Prosecution Service if there'd been any indication from the autopsy that there was evidence of a crime. That's the take home. I could have said that in 5 minutes, but there you go. You've got a live that I wasn't planning on doing, but I always say that. All right, guys. We've not reached 1,000 likes, therefore I'm not going to gift any memberships. If we'd have got to 1,000 likes, I would have also gifted some memberships, but I'm not going to do. We're not even close. All right, so like the stream on your way out, because it just helps in the algorithm. Share this live out to anybody who's still going on about it potentially being a murder and blah, 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 blah. Share them. Share this video. Tell them it isn't. And I don't know what else to say. All right, guys. Thanks for being respectful. Thank you, as always, to the mods. You're a lot quicker than me in dealing with issues. Hey, just got in there in time. Thank you for the $4.99. Just got in time. Thank you for the donations. Welcome to all the new members, and I'm going to see you very soon. Bye, guys.